All right, let's talk about this. So, my name is Stuart Collins. Some of you know me, and maybe you don't know me, but I live in San Francisco. I pay attention to the newspaper. I pay attention to the news and what goes on. And a number of friends sometimes ask me, like, how can you help me make sense of the election? Because there's a lot of stuff on it, and you seem to know what's going on. So, this is my explanation of what's on the San Francisco ballot, which I have right here. And you might have gotten this in the mail as well, and you're just looking at it thinking, oh, it's coming, and I should be a good participant in democracy. Well, in this video, I'm going to go through my opinion on the ballot measures and what you need to know as concisely as possible. I first off think it's extremely important to vote. So even if you don't vote the way I, recommend, I'd like you to vote, especially with a local election. It has an outsized influence on your life since you live here every day, and you have an outsized influence on its outcome since there's not as many voters voting in a local election and even fewer voters voting in an off-cycle election like this one. Okay, that's it. Let's get into what's on the ballot. So I have it over here. Yes. And this is a spreadsheet you can look up and view, and I've said what I think the different positions should be and why. All right, so first off, the first thing to look at is the DCCC. So this is one of the first things on the ballot that you'll encounter, and it's maybe the one that's the most kind of overwhelming and like, what the heck should I do here? There's something like 30 different candidates on it, and you multiple pick. You pick, depends on which district you're in, either 10 or 14 picks. And those people that win go on to the Democratic Central County Committee, and that group endorses what the local Democratic Party endorses. So there's some sway and influence they have. Um, and there are two big slates of candidates that are running for this. There's one that's more aligned with the progressive faction in San Francisco, and one that's more aligned with the moderate faction in San Francisco. These are not formal parties. They're just useful descriptions. And I will say progressives and moderates in San Francisco is that sometimes has fuzzy boundaries. Okay, that said, I have aligned myself with the moderate slate in San Francisco. Main reason for that is I believe that the most important issue for San Francisco is building more housing, and that a lot of other issues are related to that. And we have built up, God, decades and decades of process that stymies housing and resistance, local resistance to building anything, and it leads to really high rents, and then we blame somebody for it. And you blame whoever you want to blame. For some people, it's blaming billionaires. For some people like me, it's blaming the city. We end up blaming somebody. That said, the YIMBY group, the Yes in My Backyard group, has endorsed all the ones that say more housing. I think you should vote for all of them. That's going to lead to the most housing outcomes. And then sharing the slate with them on some other endorsement letters, like here. There's also, I don't know if you're going to see it. There's also this guy, Cedric. He's not on the YIMBY one, but he's on the other slates as well. And so in Assembly District 19, also Michaela. All right. You're going to get a lot of different mailers like this with groups, and you'll find that the mailers generally go for one slate or the other. If you find a group that really aligns with your principles, well, maybe you'd adopt their slate. Um, okay, moving on. State Assembly. This is only on the eastern side of San Francisco. Matt Haney, he's the current incumbent. He's doing pretty good. Been there for 2 years, I think, and he doesn't have any meaningful opposition. So, yep, vote for him. Scott Wiener, you should vote for him. He is an absolute champion. I love that guy. I'm so proud to have him as our representative, and I met him in the airport once. Okay, judges. So this is another one where you're probably like, I don't know who these people are. Who should I vote for? And you get mailers like this. This is that one I just showed you with the slate that I like. But then they're endorsing Chip and Gene here. I am not supporting them. So there's basically two options here. There's retain the current judges that are sitting on the bench or elect new judges. Why would we elect new judges? We don't like the way that the current judges are judging, something like that. So, When I first saw this, I thought, why am I being asked this? I don't know much about judging. I don't know what a good professional judge should be. I don't know what their work ethic should be. I don't know how the process should be. I don't know a lot about judging. I would like somebody who does know a lot about that to choose. Well, and I would like that person to be somebody I trust. So what if like the governor's office vetted judges, figured out who was the best and picked one and put him on the bench? Well, that is the process that actually does happen. And the people that are standing up for re-election passed that process. And then every 6 years, judges need to be reelected by popular vote. Usually, always incumbent judges are reelected because we don't really know much about judges. But if a judge were to do something totally egregious and become really unpopular, they could be voted out. Um, so I trust the process that those people went through to be vetted as good judges. And I want to trust in that process because I'm not an expert in judges. So that's what these two people are, Michael and Patrick, or the Honorable Berger and Thompson. They're the judges that are currently in the seat. A lot of the more moderate side, the political groups in San Francisco that are moderately aligned are all pushing for the new judges because the thought is these judges will be harder on crime or something. It's debatable whether that would actually be the outcome. I mean, maybe, but one way or another, those new judges have not passed the vetting process that the current judges have. The San Francisco Chronicle has a good write-up on this. Okay, U.S. Senate. You're voting for two things in the Senate. One is who will finish the term of Senator Feinstein, who passed away in office a year ago. You could choose Adam Schiff, you could choose Katie Porter, you could choose Barbara Lee. Those are the main contenders. I don't know who I'm going to vote for the rest of the term. Maybe Porter, maybe Schiff. That's probably who I'm going to vote for. Okay, then the Senate primary. This one's interesting. This is which two of these candidates should stand in the general election. Only two of them will stand in the general election, the two that get the most votes. Adam Schiff is probably for sure going to be in it. So maybe you want to vote for whoever you think you want to hear from in the general election in November. For me, that's Porter. I think she has a good understanding of the policies that affect California. She's kind of a stand up, like, makes a name for herself otherwise. And the Chronicle had a good write up of like, they interviewed all the candidates and Porter really stood out to them strongly in the interview. She didn't do as well in the debate, but in the interview with the Chronicle, she was really good. U.S. Representative Nancy Pelosi is the longtime representative of San Francisco. San Francisco basically serves as a safe seat for a Democrat to have a long tenure in the U.S. House of Representatives and then lead a lot of national politics for the Democrats. That's, San Francisco wants to give that, but one drawback of that is it sometimes feels like Pelosi doesn't pay attention to San Francisco as much. But she has brought home the bacon on a number of projects, which is commendable. So maybe you would vote for somebody else kind of as a message to be like, Nancy, pay attention to us. But she's going to win. She's a Democratic powerhouse. Think about it. Okay, propositions. Again, your vote really matters for all of these. I find reading the Chronicle, the San Francisco Chronicle's election guide, which is up here, really helpful on just what is the background on these if you want to get into it. Okay, Proposition A, or sorry, California propositions. Proposition 1, California proposition. The state is allowed to borrow money to invest in affordable housing. Vote yes, this is a generally uncontroversial thing. The state is retiring debt, meaning it's paying off debt. And now it's asking like, we want to replace that debt with some new debt and do something useful with it. That's how you build your house, right? So that's what the state is asking to do. SF propositions. A, very similar, but just for San Francisco. We want to borrow money, issue a bond to build affordable housing. It's pretty uncontroversial. Just about everybody who has a mailer is saying yes on it. B, this one is, I'm a no. I'm a decisive no. This one has a really interesting backstory. So it on its surface, it purports to set minimum staffing levels for the police department in San Francisco. And right now, a lot of people are like, yeah, let's have more police. That would be good. And I'm actually, I want the police to be fully staffed. But this doesn't really address the problems that would actually do that. It was put on the ballot. Well, it was originally proposed by Matt Dorsey, who's a San Francisco supervisor. That's a fancy word for our city hall. Um, but then amended by a different supervisor to kind of convolute it and make it require voters pass a tax to fund the police. So basically what this means is that there's minimum staffing levels, except contingent on voters in the future voting for a tax to pay for police, which is very restrictive on how the city spends money, odd, delays it. It's just convoluted. And Matt Dorsey, the person who originally brought up the original version of this, dropped support of it and says, no, do not vote for this. They're sending out things like this. It's a bait and switch. Um, uh, I think police staffing levels would be much more fixed by the city making its hiring process much faster. Right now, it takes a long time to hire. Just fix that. Just fix that. That would be so much easier. Okay, Proposition C. This has to do with um, giving a tax break when a property switches from commercial to residential. So right now, there's a lot of thinking like, hey, we need more housing in the city. We got all these empty commercial office towers downtown. Could we make some of them residential? Some of them, yes, not all of them. But the ones that can, sometimes they're like, well, it actually doesn't make sense financially, so nobody's going to do it. So what this does is this is a tax break if you convert a commercial property into a residential property. It is meant to incentivize it and have more of it happen, because without this, the conversions don't happen and things just stay put. So I'm a yes on this. Makes sense for the goals of San Francisco. And it only works once. It's a tax break once upon making that switch. Um, the By the way, it's the transfer tax. So it's when you sell a property, San Francisco usually charges a tax on that sale. So the first time you sell the property after making the conversion, you get a tax break on that transfer tax. Okay. Proposition D. This one is a change to ethic laws. So in the wake of the San Francisco Public Works having fraudulent things and bribes happening in the Department of Public Inspection, people being caught being bribed, it was just like, this is stupid, bad. So this is just a refinement and clarification of ethics rules. Like, you and you and you are not allowed to take gifts from anyone like this. So it's uncontroversial. Everybody says yes, vote yes. E. Okay, this one is probably one of the most, I don't know. There's gonna be a lot of disagreement on this one. I would be sympathetic to it, and if you want to vote yes, I get it. A lot of like this ballot, the one I pointed to earlier, that I'm like, I like this slate. They are yes on E. But E, it basically is like changing a lot of rules of how let me make sure I'm talking about the right one. Yeah. The policies that the police department has to follow, and it gives some things that the legislature or the executive branch should just establish. Like, the voters should not be asked to do this. We don't understand all this about policing. We just want it to work. And it seems like the mayor can't get what she wants from the progressive controlled board of supervisors. So she's going to the voters to try to end run around the board of supervisors. But the voters aren't great. We're not good for this. This creates a policy that's rigid and difficult to change in the future and might be misinformed and is vulnerable to us being like, yeah, criminals, bad. Uh, Um, a lot of the things that are proposed in it, I want to see, but I don't think this is the process to do it. And some of the things in it, I'm a little like, I don't know if that's what I'd want. So you'll vote how you want. Reading the Chronicle's endorsement on this will be helpful and kind of giving you a sense of what's going on, but I'm a no. All right, F. So this requires that somebody who's getting cash assistance from the city and they are using drugs or might be using drugs enter treatment. That sounds really good on the surface. Like, we shouldn't be spending money on people that are just using drugs. Rah, rah, rah. And I have a lot of sympathy for that. But again, similar to the one we just saw, this one's asking the voters to put in place a policy that is rigid, and there's a lot of nuance here. These people who are getting cash assistance already deal with a lot of bureaucracy and approvals to get that. There's a lot of checks already in place. Are they perfect? No, but the voters shouldn't be the ones writing the rule book. It should be the experts like a housing authority or the different departments in San Francisco. It should be done by the executive branch and the legislative branch. And for us to vote on it, and it adds extra rules. It just, most studies that go into like, does cash assistance work for people? It's like, yes, it does. And if you just put a bunch of rules on it, you put a bunch of time burden on people to the point where they can't do other things because they have all this time burden on it. Ugh. Now, that is all to say, no, I think it's already regulated enough and we have bigger problems to fry, and this shouldn't be done by the voters. Okay. And finally, G, yes, it asks the school board to put algebra back in the 8th grade. It's non-binding because that's a decision for the school board to make. So it's just being like, school board, we want this, don't do it. I will make a note, the school board already voted like last week or the week before to do this over 3 years or putting it back in. But you should still vote yes, because it sends a strong message like, yes, in San Francisco, we really value math education and its availability for people. All right. Again, that's my thought on things. I think the most important thing for you to do is vote. I'm honored if you adopt my recommendations here, and you might take some and modify them. One way I'd like you to vote, if you educate yourself, maybe with the San Francisco election guide, that is bonus points. San Francisco Chronicle does the best job writing about these propositions and giving you the nuance, like where did it come from? What does it intend to do? Does it do that thing well? Is this the process to use it by? What do they think? Nobody else writes out that kind of thorough background on things from an unbiased perspective and then gives you an opinion. I think they're awesome. So you should read about their stuff. And I believe it's not behind a paywall, their election guide. All right. Thank you. If you use this, please let me know. I'd love to know. All right. Good luck out there. And thanks for being a resident in San Francisco and voting.